Welcome to our channel Ron Sailing, where we are building a 50-foot sailboat from scratch. And we've just finalized the keel grid, which we've been working on for the past 3 months.
It takes a while just to get all this stuff off, especially that sticky butyl tape for the vacuum bags. It really sticks to the hull as well. It's almost all removed now, but it has taken quite some time to get it off. So the next step now will be to clean the whole keel grid up. Sand around the limber holes and overall just prepare the whole thing for a layer of barrier coat. So tomorrow will probably be a full day of sanding and just prep work. So it's time for another round of sanding. Always fun when that happens. Är det bra?
Ja, det är det.
Okej, jag ska ta om någon nu. Vi har bara lite tid kvar.
Jag ska bara visa dig.
Ja, för jag är jättedammig.
Jag ska visa dig.
Ja, vad ska du visa?
Vera wanted to show the hammock she'd made for her stuffed crocodile in her fort inside the house.
That was a really long day of sanding, but I got all done. Took quite some time to get all the limber holes smooth on the inside, because some of the fiberglass, there were strands of fiberglass hanging down at the edges of all the limber holes. So obviously I don't want to have them there, because the way it was, if you stuck your finger in there, it was like hooks hooking onto your fingers. So that's why I really wanted to get rid of all of those. So I've been debating with myself back and forth which way forward is the best. If we should continue now with the barrier coat. I know that I've been saying that that is the next step, but now I'm thinking maybe that's not the best thing to do right now, because we're going to install bulkheads, and those bulkheads are going to be tabbed into the hull and also in places against the keel grid. And if we coat everything now with the barrier coat, we need to sand those areas to get the good secondary bonding with the new fiberglass. And the barrier coat is pretty hard to sand. It forms a really hard surface. So maybe it's just better to just wait until we have those bulkheads installed and then coat everything. But then I have another place in my brain thinking that it would have been so nice to see the inside of the hull here, or at least the bottom part, finished, you know, in one uniform color, to really feel and see the progress of everything. But my more practical side of my brain is thinking that's really stupid to do that right now, because you just have to sand on top of that barrier coat before we install the bulkhead, so why not wait? And yeah, I'm thinking I will just continue now with the bulkheads and then just wait with this decision. So I'm going to start working on the chain locker now, and the first thing I need to do is to produce the bottom piece here. And it's going to sit on top of the stem, but a bit above that, because we want to have the bottom of the chain locker just slightly above the waterline level, so we can have a self-draining chain locker. So I'm going to take a few measurements, and then we're going to produce this bottom piece from an already finished sandwich panel. So for the bottom section of the chain locker, we're going to use this prefabricated Dura sandwich panel. It has a PET foam core, and yeah, this one is 40 millimeter thick, so it's really stiff and quite light for its thickness. Dura sent us a couple of samples of this, and I thought this is a good place to try it out. And who knows, maybe we're going to use more of this moving forward in the interior build. And this could potentially save us a lot of time, not having to make each and every panel, sandwich panel, ourselves.
The bottom of the chain locker gets glued in with thickened epoxy. Later on, it will also get tabbed in with fiberglass along the edges.
So last night we got the first bulkhead laminated on one side. This is the face facing into the chain locker. So this one has 1500 grams of glass per square meter, 2 layers of 600 gram biax and 300 gram of a weave. And it's been a pretty mild night, around 7 degrees Celsius, but it's not fully cured yet, so that's why I have the infrared heater on now. I'm going to leave it here now for a few hours more, and then we can flip it over and do the other side. And in the meantime, I will start cutting bulkhead number 2 with the shaper. So we have solved the issue with the non-sticking shaper tape to the PET foam now. We're using a normal masking tape first, because it sticks a lot better to the foam. And then we put the shaper tape on top of that. And that seems to be working really well. And this is not too expensive, so that's good. So this next bulkhead number 2, is wider than one sheet. So we have divided it down the middle. So it will be made from 2 pieces that we will glue together before we start laminating. So we have the first bulkhead in the correct position now. and it's fixated with some super glue just to keep it in place until we can get it tabbed in. The next thing now will be to cut some triangular shaped PET foam that we're going to use around the corners and glue that in place with thickened epoxy on both sides. And that's because I just want to widen the footprint of the bulkhead against the hull so that we don't create like a hard spot when we tab this in with fiberglass later on. Maybe not so critical on this bulkhead, could have been enough with just a big radius fillet with the thickened epoxy and then glass over that. But this way we'll save some epoxy and we get an even wider base, wider footprint. But it gets more important once we get to the next bulkhead, and definitely on the ones in the mast area. There it's really important that we don't create any hard spots against the hull.
Lyfta upp kroppen. Lyfta upp.
Så.
Kan jag hålla här uppe?
Ja. What do you think?
I'm the chain now. Gee. Looking really good. So cool to have one space finished, more or less.
Yeah.
The structure is here. It feels like it's the biggest change locker that I've ever seen. Especially the drop.
Yeah, it's pretty massive.
I can stand up here and it's not even the full height.
No.
Because now I'm standing on the new floor that you built. It's super solid.
Yes.
And it's elevated from the bottom of the hull, at least with, what can it be, 15 centimeters or more, 20?
Yeah, something like that.
And I can still fit in here. And it's very roomy.
Yeah.
So if you want to be really alone on the boat, you can come up here and sit on the chain pile.
I think it will be great with the chain drop. No problem with the build up of the chain.
And will the chain come down like here?
Yeah, somewhere around here. The windlass will sit just up here, so pretty close to the wall, but not too close.
And then pile up 100 meters of chain.
Hopefully not that far up,
because
but
then it
should be below this.
Yeah.
And
maybe stainless steel chain.
yeah, if we go for stainless, it will be like a duplex chain, but those are really expensive, so I doubt that. It will probably be just a normal galvanized chain, which is fine too. And hopefully the pile of chain won't be taller than this.
But how did you calculate? How did you come up with the shape and the size of this opening?
Measurements, and from what has worked in the past on Ulf's other boats. So this should be sufficient, the height. But if we find out that it's not deep enough, we can always add more glass here.
And the reason for this size of opening is for easy access.
Yeah, access.
So you're now standing in the deck storage compartment.
Yep.
Which will be accessed from the deck, climb down on a ladder on this wall.
Yep.
And here we're going to store sails, fenders, lines, all that type of stuff, and then have the access to the chain.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the holes, the self-drainage holes that Johan also cut down there. So then those will be connected. There will be hoses on there, or?
Nah, the holes are there to put like through holes through the bottom of the chain locker, but those will be like secondary drainage, so those won't be used most of the time.
Like more of an extra.
Yeah, because we want to have like a self-draining box, so we'll put holes through the hull on the sides. But then in addition to that, I thought maybe it's good to have extra drainage, but it might be that we don't need those, and then we'll just close those holes off later on. But once I did the cutting file, I put those in there. The water line is down here, so the holes will be above. Now, the bottom of the chain locker is above the water line, so we can just have holes on the sides, and it will be self-draining. And then also the floor in there is tilted backwards, so all the water is running against these holes on the sides. So it should be a self-draining box.
And it's a pretty good tilt.
Yeah.
I can feel that.
Yeah, because
going.
it's nice to have a chain that can sit dry most of the time, so you don't have collected water sitting there all the time, because that's
especially when it's mostly salt water.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we can use these walls for something.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe it's not needed. We'll see.
We'll see.
It just feels strange to have this big space, and it's only for chain that's going to sit on the bottom.
It's just that, of course, you want to have the windlass in an area on deck where it's not too narrow, because then it will be kind of in the way in the front.
Hard to stand up there.
It's a bit of a compromise. You want to have the chain drop as far aft as possible, to have like the drop, but also to have the chain or the windlass sitting in a position on deck where it's not too narrow, because then it will feel like it's in the way.
You want to have it as aft as possible, is because of all the weight that gets collected.
Yeah.
So as you said, it's a compromise. Yeah. Ideally, we should have it even further aft.
At the mast, but you get all other problems
with that.
Yeah, and once I start tabbing this in, I will also close off the edges here in the hole.
With fiberglass.
With fiberglass.
And then the finishing layers will be paint on here.
Yeah.
So there's not going to come any other type of material on top than a barrier coat, I guess.
Yeah, barrier coat, and then maybe some filler.
And same for this space.
Yeah.
It's really exciting that we soon have 2 compartments ready.
Yes. And once the next bulkhead goes in, it will be pretty hard to get to this area. You need to climb over.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So this means that once we have this bulkhead up, we're not going to be in this space for quite some time until the deck is in place.
Yeah, that's probably correct.
Maybe at least a year from now. A year ahead, we're not going to be here.
Yeah, who knows? I've been thinking that maybe we should start the installation of the bow thruster. Because we're going to have a bow thruster, but just a traditional tunnel isn't really possible here, because the forefoot of the hull is quite shallow. So that wouldn't be a good way to have a bow thruster on this type of boat. Yeah, and since we don't like to have moving stuff under the waterline, like a fold-down bow thruster, We're thinking of getting like a jet bow thruster instead, and yeah, it needs to be a pretty powerful one since they're less efficient than having a propeller, so it needs to be a pretty big one.
Yeah, so we're thinking about it and how we're gonna do that in a good way, and yeah, that's something that we're gonna get
into
back to
later on. But how we see it right now is that the nozzles of that will sit as far front as possible to get the best leverage on the hull. So maybe in this region up here could be a good way, and then the hoses for that will run under the sole that we'll put in here later on, like a grid.
I think this foam is such a cool material.
Yeah.
And with the fiberglass, the laminate on top, it's so rock hard, so solid.
Yeah, it gets very stiff and strong,
but still so light.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool with sandwich panels. It gets really light and strong. So we're going to save a lot of weight by using this.
And another positive thing was that it went quite quick to make this bulkhead, right?
Yeah.
You just have to plan the way you're doing it. So you have one side always laminated, then start on another one, so you can then go back to the first one once it has cured.
Yeah.
So you're working like on 2 bulkheads at the same time.
Yeah.
Or of course more.
Having these 3D files now, the whole boat, now we get the benefit of having built a pretty accurate hull according to the drawings, that we can trust those files when we're taking like a cutting file straight from the drawings. It will fit in the actual hull as well, so that's really good.
So this was it for this week's episode, and next week we're gonna be inside of our bedroom.
Yeah.
Our cabin.
The living quarters. Going to be really cool once we get that next bulkhead up.
So exciting. I think we should cut out the shape of the bed in cardboard and lay it there just to get a feel of what it's gonna look like.
That could be cool.
But thank you so much for watching and for your comments and supporting our production and this video.
Yeah.
Take care, and we see you next week.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye.